We all can agree that the time is right for electric cars. In fact, the time is critical. Distinguished delegates, eminent speakers, experts from the industry, fellow ICATians, a very good morning to all of you. I am Sati Vedi on the behalf of International Center for Automotive Technology, Aspire Management, extend a very warm welcome to all of you for joining in the webinar on bench level integrated testing, the future of EV development. International Center for Automotive Technology, ICAT, located in Northern Automotive Hub of India, is a leading world-class automotive testing, certification, and R&D service provider under the aegis of NATRIP, Government of India. Aspire is a technology platform. Aspire stands for Automotive Solutions Portal for Industry, Research, and Education. Aspire has taken an initiative of conducting webinars on various topics, which is a part of celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which is 75th anniversary of celebration of independence, of aiming to reinforce the Atmanirbhar Bharat in technology area. It is our privilege to have you all with us today on this webinar. The roots of a tree actually decide how high it will rise. For this webinar, we have set a virtual stage to connect the industry, to indulge and acquaint ourselves with emerging EV technologies and trends. For today's interactive session, we have following speakers: Mr. Neeraj Awasthi, Deputy General Manager, Corporate Affairs; Mr. Ankur Gupta, Maruti Suzuki India Limited; Mr. Vijay Dinakaran, Deputy General, Renault Nissan Technology and Business Center India Private Limited; Mr. Neeraj Awasthi, Deputy General Manager and Corporate Affairs, having 28 years of experience in customer service. He is ex-Devo and long time in Honda and Honda. Mr. Ankur Gupta, Maruti Suzuki India Limited. He has 15 years of experience in automotive industry. He had worked in HEV and EV powertrain technologies for system control, design, and product development. His interest areas include electric powertrain, system engineering, controls engineering, and safety. He holds a bachelor degree in electronics and communication engineering from IIT ISM Dhanbad. Mr. Dinakaran, Vijay Dinakaran, Deputy Manager at Renault Nissan Technology and Business Center India Private Limited. He leads advanced vehicle regulation topics like hybrid, electric vehicle, cyber security since 2017, and responsible for all regulatory monitoring and lobbying with related government departments. Some of his academic projects are: provided supply selection solution for small and medium enterprises, provided design solutions for jigs and fixtures in a small scale company for automated drilling on circular workpiece, and significantly improved the JPH, jobs per hour. Some of his achievements are: trainer for regulation awareness program in the company and training 700 plus employees per year, information security officer of the department, and successfully completed ISO 27001 certification.
I think there is no sound, Devesh. Hello.
Now I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Madhusudan Joshi. He is the moderator of the session. Dr. Madhusudan Joshi, Deputy General Manager at ICAT, 16 plus years of experience in automotive field. His areas of interest are automotive homologation and validation, facility planning and execution in NVH, EMC, photometry, auto electrical and electronics, white good test lab, IT product test lab, ITS Test Lab, Battery Test Lab, Automotive Regulations, experience of successful program management of R&D projects related with HEV and EV development, intelligent transportation systems, glare-free vehicular lighting systems, intelligent vehicle system, RES development, etc. So please join me to welcome Dr. Madhusudan Joshi, DGM ICANN. Sir, we welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Asta, and good morning to all the panelists, fellow panelists, and also to all the speakers and attendees of this webinar, which is focused on very, very specific topic of bench level integrated testing, which we foresee as the future of EV development, because we think that it is going to, ease our life in terms of optimizing the EV development cycle. My fellow colleagues from OE will kind of agree to this, that nowadays it is highly challenging to roll out a vehicle, specifically if you talk about the electric vehicle, because this is a new animal, and we all are in the learning stage as far as electric mobility is concerned. So since it is an off routine kind of thing and a new item for us on the table, the development of an electric vehicle at any point of time is going to be far more challenging as compared to the conventional vehicles. So keeping that view in mind, we have been, trying to understand after, talking to industry and trying to understand what kind of support they may seek from agencies like ICAT, so that we can try to help them in, try to support them rather in, validating the electric vehicles. And we have been expanding our facilities for the last 5 years with that thought process in mind, with support from Department of Heavy Industries. We had been continuously in debate with the Department of Heavy Industries, to set up the facilities at ICAT. So I think the presentation made by my colleague Devesh Parikh in the session later than this will give you more idea about how the ICAT facilities, what is the current status of facilities at ICAT as far as EV is concerned, be it related to the complete vehicle level testing, validation, or component level testing and validation, and what all expert projects related to electric mobility ICAT has executed over the period of last 4 to 5 years. In addition, I think we will also speak about our role in rule making. We have been trying to do our best to support industry in bringing out different kind of regulations, whether it is components or infrastructure side of the electric mobility, or all other supporting regulations, which actually we foresee we may be required for making our life easy as far as the certification and validation of electric vehicles are concerned. So with the initial thoughts, I would like to have a short discussion with my fellow colleagues from industry, Vijay from Renault, Ankur from Maruti, and Mr. Avasti from Honda Cars. So this is not a panel discussion. Good morning. So this is not a panel discussion because panel discussion was something which we were not intending to do. We just wanted to exchange views and try to understand how industry thinks about the facilities which may be required for validation testing, how they are doing at their end, and what expectations they have from agencies like ICAT, or if there are some inputs they would like to give in terms of policy making. So that is also we would like to understand, so that we try to bring forth some of the valid points at different forums wherever we can get an opportunity, because this is an ecosystem and all of us are a part of the ecosystem, and creating a ease of business at every stage and every level will definitely help to have a good electric mobility kind of ecosystem in India. So with these words, I would like to start my discussion. My first question is to Mr. Avasthi from Honda Cars. So as I see your background, Mr. Avasthi, first of all, I would like to pose a very simple and straightforward question to you that what exactly you think about future of electric mobility in India as compared to the world outside? There are certain countries which are way ahead of us. There are certain countries which are actually trying to catch up like us, and there are some countries where there is no movement at all as far as electric mobility is concerned. They are actually in the process of deciding what to do about it. And the question to you would be that what do you think is the future of electric mobility in India? What are the challenges? What are the inhibitors? What can be the enablers? So, what is your opinion on that?
Sir, I think Mr. Avasthi joined, but there was some technical issue, so he has dropped off. We are trying to help him to get back.
Okay, so we wait for him to join, but in the meantime, let me ask a question to Mr. Ankur Gupta. How do you foresee, development of supply chain as far as electric mobility is concerned? As you know that government has an impetus with Make in India kind of initiative to have everything localized. How do you see that supply chain for electric mobility will evolve in India, and what is your opinion? How should it be done? And if you are willing to share how Maruti is trying to do it, so it will be a good, kind of a knowledge sharing with all the people who are attending the webinar today.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here. So I think this is a question which is very wide in itself, and I may not be the right person to speak about the supply chain as such. However, I just will give my views based on the experience that I have and what we see around us. So today people are looking at green alternatives, as we know, to conventional ICE vehicles, right? Which includes CNG hybridization and even full electrification. So if you're starting from there, the factors that are arising due to cost of fuel itself, and the personal and the share mobility needs. Now there are clear demarcations of between these two things, and of course the performance and the safety. All of these factors are going to converge in the coming future, I think. So which will give a boost to such alternative powertrain solutions, components, their development and production in India also. So EVs basically use many electrical and electronic components, I think, and which is much more than what we have seen on our vehicles till now. And it really has a great potential to do a lot more than what we have done till now, of course, from the localization perspective. And we definitely need that we see if we really want to have EVs proliferate in the coming future. In addition to it, a lot needs to be done, I think, to meet the testing needs also. Not only the localization part. I think when we have to in the design and development or area also, we have to do a lot of testing of these electrical components So there I feel that the initiative from ICAT that has been there for having the localized test benches. Localized means nearby test benches, and a lot of complex setups can be realized there. So this is one of the very appreciable initiative that ICAT has taken, and they have gone a lot far than what they have started from. So yes, that's my views on the localization. So it's a good example of localization. The testing needs also, I think. So I'm coming from the engineering background, so I feel that localization, not just the components production or something, but we have to also see that the labs are readily available and scalable, and can be used for different electrical components and with different complexities. Yes.
Thank you, Ankur, and thank you for your views. Just to add to your comment on ICAT facilities, I would be happy to say that ICAT has the most versatile and detailed facilities as far as EV validation is concerned in the entire country at the moment. We had been spending a lot of money. We have been, putting a lot of our revenues back into, setting up these facilities. Some of the facilities are state of the art, and I would request all of you to stay back and have a look at the presentation made by Devesh, so that you can get an idea what all is available and how we can, and also give suggestions to what all we should be doing in order to facilitate more towards this, as far as validation of electric mobility is concerned. Thank you for your views, Ankur. Now the next question is to Vijay. Vijay, I know, is coming from validation and homologation background. So, Vijay, what do you think? How can we optimize the EV development cycle? What are your views on that? I mean, of course, there are some of the ready reckoners available to us as far as the conventional vehicle development is concerned. We know a lot of methods are there, virtual techniques are there to somehow expedite the development cycle of a vehicle. What is your view on optimizing the development cycle for electric vehicle, say for example a passenger car or a two-wheeler, whatever you would like to speak on?
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Joshi. That's a very important question. Today, ICE has been very established, and still from idea to a production. Typically, for internal combustion engine products, it takes 25 to 35 months. It depends on the manufacturer and their expertise. So now coming to EVs, it's a very new ball game. It has just started a decade ago in most of the countries. So there, the most important lead time is on the validation part, because manufacturers are at a junction where to decide whether to upgrade the existing ICE platform or to go for an all new EV platform. So that is one of the key aspects of it. And moreover, today there is no defined cycle for it. Everyone is like on the job, they are learning as a process. Each manufacturer is coming out with a different strategy. So I see this validation is a big part. Basically, what I understand on the EV front is battery safety is the one thing, and second one is on the axle durability or on the overall vehicle durability. So we need to just put it into work packages. So that's where I see EV is moving a little bit away from the existing industry, where we move from a task-based work to a work packages. So we work simultaneously in different pockets, and then we come out with a solution at right time to the market. So this is something work in progress, learning. That's what I see.
Okay, further, thank you, Vijay. But one more further question to you, as you see that after talking to a lot of stakeholders from component industry, from vehicle industry, from the people with validation background, companies like NI, we have a speaker from NI today who has been brought in to give some more information about what is happening on the virtual side of EV development. This what we understood that is in order to reduce the development cycle for an electric vehicle, it is important that just doing component validation in isolation is not a very good idea. So we try to create an environment inside the lab where we actually try to simulate the complete vehicle and using those actual components as a part of that setup, and then try to do the individual validation of the parts, say for example batteries, BMS, then motors, controllers, etc., and also to see what is the effect of one component performance on other when it is tested as a single unit, as an integrated unit. So we kind of try to simulate the complete vehicle inside the lab. This is the meaning of bench level validation. So what do you think? I mean, would this be is this a meaningful kind of thing which is done by ICAT, or we are going in the wrong direction? What is your view on this?
I think as a system, as an explanation you have given, I think this could be maybe a very, very good idea in terms of two aspects, because timeline reduction is not the only goal, but giving a very, very proven product to the market at right time is important. So having a system integrated testing will be very interesting to understand. Personally, from our organization, we like to understand more, because when you integrate the systems, the interference, and because there will be more and more power electronics, and here there will be a lot of electronics that's going into the car. So as a system, if we do that integration, we can reduce a lot of time on running the vehicle on road, specifically EVs. So I would say that this is a very, very important aspect that we can look upon.
Okay, good. Is Mr. Avasthi back, Devesh? Hello?
No, sir. He is having some technical issue. He is not able to join back. Yeah.
Okay.
Our IT team is supporting him.
Okay. So my question to both the speakers, both the panelists, is: do you see that there is a need to evolve a product validation cycle or a development test protocol for electric vehicles as far as Indian conditions are concerned, or it will be okay to go ahead with what are the international validation protocols being followed, or do you think that we need to evolve something specific to India, because as we know, India has very diverse climatic conditions and road conditions, so to say. So what is your opinion on that? This question is to both of you. Maybe we can start with Ankur, and then we can go to Vijay.
Okay, yeah, I think this is very, very important point. I think you have put. I think as we know that electric vehicles have the potential to completely change the way we use a vehicle and the way we interact it with today. And at the same time, we are also a land of huge, very, very different geographical conditions, environmental conditions. And on top of that, there is a huge variation of driving patterns, the driving behavior that the customer brings in, or the driver brings in, the usage patterns, and the infrastructure that is available. So the biggest challenge itself is to how to develop a robust product around that. And of course, these factors themselves pose a challenge in meeting all such requirements and design a product around it, right? Now, coming to the validation perspective, of course, we have to be up to the mark on the design and how to bring up the requirements of the conditions that we are in. But at the same time, there is a very big challenge to set up the Indian specific test conditions in the lab. So the Indian specific test conditions plus the behavior that the Indian customer brings in, the usage pattern that the Indian customer brings in, all of such requirements or all of such use cases must be, if we talk about the bench level validation, I think this is a very key area. And once such system level benches are in place, definitely a lot of complex test cases that we have to execute over a vehicle, taking a lot of time and effort, and even in some cases it is very difficult to execute them. Such bench can really help us. I mean, it can save us a lot of fleet hours, or it can also save us a lot of engineering effort later on. The second perspective is the design validation itself. So the design validation, of course, we have been doing independently for a particular component here and there. So each component being tested separately. For many years, we are using HIL systems, but the component testing has been done. But slowly and gradually, as you have shown the trend we are going to show the trend also in the webinar, that the bench level testing or the system level testing has to be the next thing for the EVs. This is really going to change the way we look at our validation cycle, because many complex electrical components like high voltage batteries, motors, inverters, DC-DC converters, and chargers come with their own set of different protocols. So integration of these components is going to increase the complexity of the bench, and of course the safety measures that are required to be taken in order to set up these test benches. So overall, it also brings a challenge that how to do that system level testing fairly, simply, and of course safely. So another important aspect that I would like to point out, and would like to also have a takeaway from the presentations today, is how these benches are scalable. For example, we have different components with different specifications, and sometimes we have we only have to have a use case in which we test one component. Then we have another set of component like testing a battery with its cooling system, along with a motor also, along with its cooling system, for example. So there has to be a scalability in terms of the number of components and the specification of the components. So that it can also meet the test requirements, because setting up and maintaining these labs also is quite a challenging task. So this is one takeaway that I would like to take from today's presentation, and I look forward to such an initiative from that point of view. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Ankur.
Thanks. So I just want to start with a number. Like Norway has achieved 75% of new vehicle registration in 2020. They started in 2009. But if you see the average temperature range in Norway is 30 to 18 degrees, and the maximum it's at the range of 25. And the population in Norway is 5 million. So you can scale it with 5 million with the actual population in India. So we have technologies, we have developed markets, we have all products in the world, but when it comes to India, it is very unique. So when it comes to the operating temperature or the ambient conditions, the rainfall, average rainfall in India, it's a total different thing. So we strongly feel that the test facilities needs to take care of all these aspects, and for e-mobility to be a success in India, there are two important pieces. There are a lot of things to be done. Three important pieces to be done. One is the R&D, which industry need to take care. And the second is the awareness of the citizens of India. And the third important is the test facility in India, because it is very important to have a test facility which understands the market itself rather than going outside India to do a test. It is very important to have a state-of-the-art test facility in India, so that we know what's happening here, the ground reality, and that we can translate into the test cases in the labs so that the product meets the market.
Great. Vijay, that was a very good input, and I would request Pradeep and Devesh to also, try to think about this, that when it comes to country-specific validation as far as electric vehicles are concerned, I mean, how the further optimization to whatever we are going to present today can be done. That's a good input, because as been explained, India is a typical country in many ways, and their road conditions are sometimes very, very difficult. Some terrains are difficult, some climatic range of climatic variations are different from north to south. And as Vijay has pointed out, the rainfall and floods and water logging and all, keeping all those things into view. I mean, how can we further improve on, validation side of EVs? That would be a good contribution from our side as far as the testing and validation is concerned. So I think, Devesh, we have only this much of time, and I would like to thank both the speakers, and unfortunately, Mr. Avasthi could not join. So I would like to hand it over back to the Devesh and team, and I would wish to thank Vijay and Ankur for their useful inputs. And I look forward that today's event will help us in understanding each other in a better way, requirements, and what all further needs to be done from our side. So the basic idea of having this event is not to only have discussions, but we would like to get feedback from industry. First of all, as whether we are going in the right direction, and if they need something else and something more from us, we would be very happy to know at the end of the webinar. Also, try to connect more with you people with similar events so that we understand the requirements in a good way, and do our best to support the industry. Thank you so much, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for this interactive session, with a wonderful session. This immense knowledge will help us all greatly. Now, for today's technical session, we have following speakers: Mr. Pradeep Nair, Managing Director and Technical Head, Blawplug Innovations Private Limited; Mr. Devesh Parekh, Manager, Electrical and Electronics Group, ICAT. Mr. Pradeep Nair is the Managing Director and Technical Head of Blawplug Innovations Private Limited. Blawplug is a market leader, is architecting and integrating advanced real-time test systems, especially for automotive domain. With his 2 decades of experience in this field, personally working on the cutting-edge horizon techs, he shares great enthusiasm in the direction that testing solutions in the automotive industry has taken. So please join me to welcome Mr. Pradeep Nair. So we welcome you.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Pradeep, you are audible.
Great. So I'll just share my screen. Great. And my screen is visible, right?
Yes, sir. So please start the session.
Okay, great. So welcome all. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you, Dr. Madhusudan, and the panelists, Mr. Ankur and Mr. Vijay, for a fantastic discussion that we had around the EV vehicle and the test scenarios around it. As a continuation of that, as Dr. Madhusudan rightly mentioned, I would like to go ahead and do a presentation on a smart way of conducting real-time tests for various components of the EV powertrain. Myself, I'm Pradeep Nair, and I'm from Blawplug Innovations Private Limited. We are the alliance partner of National Instruments in India, and we specifically focus on transportation. And within transportation, there's a wide variety of services that we offer. And along with ICAT, we focus on providing various services and solutions specifically on the test systems. So whether it is prototyping, developing real-time test solutions concerning EV or battery management systems, or connected to ADAS or engine control systems. So whether it's an ICE vehicle, HEV, or a complete BEV, together partnering with ICAT, we can provide you the right solutions, by virtue of which you'll be able to test your components in the best possible way. But before we get into it, for the sake of audience, I would like to discuss briefly about the electric powertrain. Right. So traditionally, most of us who are in the automotive domain has been used to this ICE powertrain, right, wherein we have the engine, the clutch and the gear systems, to the transmission, and then to the differential controlling the vehicle, right? And over the years, over the past many years, we have seen an increased usage of HEV powertrain, right? And in HEV, we have various versions or various kinds of flavors that is provided as per the advantages or the disadvantages that it brings in, right? So some of them, as you can see here, like the Tuscan, right? It allows you to have a mild hybrid. So it is still driven by IC, but it is assisted by a motor which gets powered by a battery bank, etc. So this is the configuration of a mild hybrid, and most of us will know about it. The next is series hybrid, right? Like the Nissan e-Note, wherein the engine in turn works as a generator, powers the battery, and the battery then powers the motor that drives the transmission. Right. So it's purely EV, and the engine is used to charge the battery. Right. So it still works on liquid fuel, and there are a lot of disadvantages about it. But the advantage of it being introduced first was the EV charging infrastructure wasn't available in various places in many countries, and thus a series hybrid wherein the engine does the charging became popular. But as the charging infrastructure improvised, a parallel hybrid or a series parallel hybrid, as we can see here, is more popular now, right? And most of the vehicles like the Mitsubishi Outlander, the 5 Series BMW hybrid versions, etc. What we see today is more of a series parallel hybrid, where as far as the HEV or PHEV vehicles are concerned, this is the structure, and it is driven by the engine or the motor, and the battery can be charged through a plug-in externally itself. Right. So this is what we see in various vehicles. Most of the OEMs has a PHEV version of the vehicle. And then we come, in the age of Teslas and others, we come to a purely BEV powertrain platform, wherein there is no assistance coming from any ICs. It's purely battery, which is charged through a plug-in infrastructure, and then you have a motor which basically drives the transmission. Right. Thus, you can see within a single OEM, within a single, you have continuously evolving technology as far as the powertrain is concerned. And most of this evolution has happened in a very short duration in the last decade or more. Thus, when it comes to the testing of these powertrains or these technologies concerned, it is becoming more and more challenge. The challenge is not just the complexity, the challenge is the timeline at which these evolutions are happening. So the OEMs and the tier ones are continuously have to be at speed, catching up with the technology, and at the same time develop the testing facility that is required to ensure the quality and the deliverability of the components, right? And specifically when it comes to EV, when we talk about testing, these are the four main reasons why we test. One is to characterize the component, which is more to confirm the components follow the required specifications or the regulatory norms of a specific country or region, right? So as Mr. Ankur and Vijay rightly mentioned, there is a lot of localization that is required. You can't just take the platform from somewhere else, implement it in another country, or you can't take the test systems and just use the same test systems here. The conditions to which the components needs to be subjected are very localized, and thus the test system also needs to be localized. Then we constantly see a requirement for endurance testing, right, where the durability is tested, and we test the durability against various conditions like the thermal conditions, thermal cycling, and as Vijay rightly mentioned, there is an increasing requirement wherein we have to subject the various components that goes into the EV to the conditions that are prevalent in that specific country, right? It might be temperature, or it might be flood conditions. Is the battery pack good enough withstand the flood conditions that might happen, right? And stuff like that. The road conditions, the etc. We also need to have certain kind of harshness testing, not just on the thermal side, but also on the vibration, or to test the compliance of the vehicle against noise and audio regulatory requirements that are there, right? And of course, during the whole design cycle, R&D cycle, also at times at the EOL, end of line testing, we do investigative testing to see certain specific issues or debug certain problems that has been reported. So right from prototype to production level, these kind of investigative testing are required. So you can see that the requirement for testing is pretty wide, right? And each of these requirements, the simulation that would be required for the specific component or the complete vehicle to be tested is very different depending on what component you're testing. So traditionally,
Pradeep, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Pradeep, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
Your slide is not moving, so you have started presenting, or you are just giving the introduction?
You can't see the slide? Oh, okay.
No, I can see the slide, but it's not moving. Yeah.
What is the slide you see? You see the component characterization?
No, I see the smart real-time test.
Oh, no. Okay. So, okay, let me just reconnect the slide, because there are 5 or 6 slides I moved.
I thought so.
Okay, just give me a second. Let me just.
Now it has changed. Now it has come to component. Yeah.
This component. Okay, great. So. Is it more? Did it change now?
Yeah, it's moving now. The test workflow. We can see
Okay.
the test workflow.
Great. Sounds good. Okay. 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 I'll just make a very quick recap since okay, that's sad that there's some good slides there and we didn't see. So I was just certain points that we were covering. So I just mentioned with partnering with ICAT, we do various kinds of solutions from ICV to BEV for the industry. Right. When it comes to the electric powertrain, we have the typical IC powertrain that we all know about. And over the last decade or so, we have seen a lot of improvements happening on the HEV, right? So like the Tuscan, we have a mild hybrid where the engine is a primary driver and the motor and the battery system the electric system just supports the engine. 2 series where the electric motor takes over the transmission responsibilities and the engine works as an assistance to charge the battery, right? And this was predominant when the charging infrastructure was not good enough. But as the charging infrastructure improvised, we see a case where plug-in charging for the battery happens, and thus a parallel hybrid or a series parallel hybrid, wherein the engine charges the motor charges the engine. When they during a long drive, the motor takes over, and when you need acceleration or you need power, the engine takes over, etc. Like in the case of Mitsubishi Outlander and BMW's various hybrid vehicles, right? And the other. From there, we see a drastic change happening, especially thanks to companies like Tesla, where we see a BEV, complete BEV powertrain, right? There's no assistance from fossil fuels and engines at all in this. Purely battery controlling the inverter, powering the inverter and the motors, and which in turn is controlling the transmission system completely, right? Now, the reason I'm covering all these various technology that is available is to introduce you to the challenges of testing, as I had mentioned earlier, right? So as the technology changes, the test system also requires to be changed, and the OEMs and Tier 1 has a constant pressure to upgrade their test systems. And traditionally, the practice has been you buy a test system for a specific case, and that test system cannot be used for anything else. For something else, you have to buy a totally different system with a different architecture, right? On top of that, there are various kinds of tests that we need to do, specifically when it comes to EV systems, right? We need to do characterization test, which is checking whether the component meets the requires regulatory norms, or it can be durability test under various conditions. So we'll make the motor work under various temperature conditions and various other environmental conditions and see how durable the components are. We also check for vibrations, sound, whether it satisfies the required norms, and we do a lot of investigative testing. So if there's a bug that gets reported, it can go all the way up to the prototype system or the design where you need to conduct testing. So again, different kinds of test system is required to satisfy these different requirements, right, for the same EV platform, for a single EV platform. And again, for these reasons, you will, when you walk into the shop floor, you'll find multiple kinds of test systems available, right? But the beauty of a smart test system is it can keep pace with your requirement, whether you have made some changes on your powertrain platform, or the kind of test you want to do, or the conditions that you want to subject it to, or the kind of component you want to test. When it changes, your test system should also be smartly be able to upgrade itself and cater to those changes, so that the capital investments that are done in those test systems gets retained, and marginal expenditure is required to make it adaptable for the various test requirements that might come up in your facility. Let's see how it is possible. So to understand that, we will have a short walk through the test workflow. So any kind of test we take, if we break it down, we basically need, there are 4 different components that are required. One is, the first and foremost is the actuation, right? We might have to simulate, for example, if it's a motor, I will have to give the motor the input that it gets from its drive, the drive's input from the inverters, the battery, the BMS system, right? There will be a lot of output that the motor system might give to other components. For example, the drive or the control unit for the motor might be communicating with the other ECUs in the car, right? So these kind of simulations needs to be actuated. It can be a sensor or an actuator that gets connected to the component that we are interested to test. And those peripheral devices needs to be simulated, right? So a model-based simulation is apt, right? Similarly, there can be a control system for the component, and that needs to be introduced. So a model-based control is required. We might also need to record and playback. So we want to record some real-time road conditions or real-time altitude conditions subjected to that specific component. So we might record it on a real-time basis and record those and playback those conditions so that those can be subjected in a lab environment on the component that we are testing. So such actuation is one of the component of a test system. Whatever component you are testing, or whatever kind of powertrain technology or other systems that you are testing. Once we do this actuation, the other key important thing is the measurement, right? So we have to measure whether these systems that we are simulating is getting simulated properly with the kind of accuracy that we require. We also have to measure the output given by the component so that we can ensure that the expected results are being achieved, right? So measurement becomes very critical, and it is here that things change as the components change, right? So today, if you are testing the BMS system, the kind of measurements that you need to do is very different vis-a-vis if you're testing a motor or if you're testing a body control unit, etc. Right? Some of these, there are various challenges in this measurement. Some of this measurement has to be synchronized with another measurement that we are doing, or another signal that we are actuating. Right? We might have to communicate for this measurement with various devices over CAN, LIN, FlexRay, etc. So there are multiple challenges when it comes to measurements. Now, once we have these measurements, what we have is the data from our component in a digitized format, right? And so once we have that digital data, the whole point of testing is to analyze that data. So we'll have to make sense of that data. We'll have to convert it into the right engineering unit. At times, we might have to calibrate it, etc. And then we'll have to, once it's in the proper format, we might, and this might come from various clients. The data might come from 20, 25 ECUs or around 100 different kinds of sensors or actuators that we are simulating or that we are connecting in the vehicle. Right? A typical HIL system we have seen has around 500 pin of measures. So we have data coming from various. And then, of course, this data needs to be analyzed and the appropriate reports has to be generated. The fourth important parameter of a test system is the management of the test system itself. So typically it can be a single unit, or it can be multiple unit which has to work together, right? So those kind of management of multiple devices, multiple instruments to work as a single unit for the test system is very important. The test system also has to cater or adhere to various kinds of standardization, right? So you need to have that. The lab might be in a different location, and the test engineer can, these days, like in current COVID period, has to work remotely. So such kind of facilities and features needs to be managed on the test system. So actuation, measurement, data management, and the overall system management are the four key components of any test system. Now, if I am able to make these four key components modular and scalable, I can use the same test systems for various requirements, right? And that's something that the test facility at ICAT has been able to achieve. The same test facility, the same system, child system, for example, is able to cater to various testing of various components, right? And if there is a new component that requires a different kind of measurement or actuation or different kind of data format, a marginal improvement or marginal change in the existing HL system can bring about those requirements into the gambit of the same test system, and you should be able to test your components, right? So the capital investments required on the test system when your technology or your component changes becomes highly marginal. Let me give you an example of that. For example, if you have an HL system that is communicating with various buses in the car, various ECUs in the car, etc., it's already doing some analog and digital PWM measurements, and then it's controlling a test cell which is subjecting the dyno or driving the dyno that is required to test the powertrain, right? So with this existing system, imagine the system was a hybrid electric vehicle, and I upgrade it. Now I want to test a pure BEV. There's not much change that will be required. The existing test system that you see on your right can be retained, and I can just introduce a battery simulator to it, right? So my system should have the capability, all those four components that I spoke about, the system, actuation, measurement, system management, and data management, in that particular HL system should be able to cater to this additional requirement or this new component that is getting connected to the test system. And thus, with the help of such technologies, the test system really becomes smart, expandable, and I can do various kinds of testing without very high incremental technology, learning, as well as cost implications. This is also very important to cater to the requirements that Mr. Vijay and Mr. Ankur mentioned, right? For example, you have to test a component now in humidity conditions or temperature conditions that India has. So the same test system can be connected to environmental chamber, which will control the environmental chamber, and the components can be tested very effectively without much changes. We did something like that for an EV company, a large EV company, wherein the battery pack needs to be tested for anti-flooding condition, or the sealing of the battery pack needs to be tested. The HL system that they had was for a BMS system, and they were looking for a new system to test this battery pack. We were able to upgrade the same BMS system to be capable of testing this battery pack and the anti-flooding features, etc., by just having an incremental costing and incremental technology thing of just 20%. So something that they were ready to invest $100, they were able to upgrade their existing system and just invest $20 to get the new test done. So that's the beauty of a very modular and smart test system, right? And thus it can cater to the typical various conditions or technologies or specifications that are required in a EV platform or a test system for an EV platform. And I can further take this up and go ahead and use the same system to test my engine also in a HEV powertrain, right? I just need to now start simulating the various sensors and actuators that gets connected to the engine, and the test system should be able to accommodate that, right? So that's the beauty of a modular system like this, right? Wherein I can change, make marginal changes, and get the system upgraded. And there are various platforms available which allows you to do very effectively, like the NI's National Instruments PXI platform, which is a very modular set of hardware. So you can just not change the IOs. For example, you have a high-end simulation requirement now. You can just change the controller and upgrade it to have FPGA inbuilt into it, so that my new Simulink model that I want to simulate for the new test that I have can be executed. The rest of the hardware and everything remains same. You just introduce that FPGA module into the test system. Same holds good for PXI backplane, chassis, the various peripheral devices, and the sensor simulators or the actuators, load simulators, etc., that are required in the system. The platform will just be able to expand and scale to the various requirements, right? And this shows a very good model of that, or architecture of that, right? Where you can see the various kinds of load, current, measurement, electrical, etc. parameters can be simulated. The same is true for software. So when it comes to software, you can see that there is a particular test flow that any test system follows, right? Initiation, simulating, then we check for the feedback, then we correct it, yes, then we take that data, do the measurements, etc., right? So same kind of scalability is possible on a system level, because the software allows you to do that scaling. So whatever be the actuation, softwares like the National Instruments VeriStand, along with the FPGA, LabVIEW software, etc., will allow you to do that scaling. Same is the case with system management, right? If your test system is equipped with a system management tool like the NI System Link, it allows you to upgrade your system very easily. For example, for another project, you need to do the requirement gathering from DOS or rational kind of tool, right? You don't need to have a different test system to do that. You can just, the system link should be, or the system management software should cater to those kind of third-party interactivity or API connectivity, so that you can go ahead and start doing testing. It is just not for the software. For example, hardware too. You have a specific test system from a specific vendor, for example, DSpace right now, right? And you want to upgrade that DSpace system to have multiple various kinds of IOs to cater to the specific component that you are testing, new component that you're testing, right? You can get that existing hardware, interface it with an HIL system that allows you to have that expandability, like the one that ICAT labs have. And so the extended IOs can be provided by your existing test systems, and the new IOs can be catered to by the smart test system that gets added, right? And the interoperability is something that the software takes care of. So it can work as if it's a single unit, though it's coming from different vendors. So that's the beauty of such smart test systems. and it's a reality and can be provided very easily, right? Some other additional things that you need to consider when you do this is the integral safety features. It's very important, especially when you're dealing with testing of EV platform. It's very important to take care of it so that the test engineers and the other engineers working on the system are safe. Also, it ensures the safety of the components and the peripheral devices that gets attached to it. Right. Another very important thing is whenever you are deciding is the long-term durability. You really have to see, because of the continuous change in the technology, right? You investing into a particular platform or a particular test system should be such that so that it can withstand the requirements that you might have in the future, which we don't know right now, right? So the system should be highly modular and should be highly scalable for those kind of requirements, flexible for those kind of further requirements. Of course, this is stuff that is a reality now. Performance modeling should be very easily done, that too in a very dynamic way, and the system should be able to cater to that. It should be able to cater to various kinds of drive cycles and other kinds of standards that you might have to follow, right? And these standards are also changing continuously. So again, the system should be able to cater to that. For example, one of the smart system that we provided was using CAN, and I remember the customer came up with a new component that was working on automotive Ethernet. Now, most of the test systems required a different unit altogether to test this component that requires an automotive Ethernet connectivity, right? But with smart systems like this, we were able to just introduce another card into the system that catered to the automotive Ethernet connectivity, and the whole system upgraded itself to communicate over automotive Ethernet along with CAN and seamlessly do the testing of the new component, right? So these are the important things to consider, and the ICAT facility, the HL system that is available at ICAT is totally equipped with kind of smart technology. So the test system that you see there, built on NI platform, is totally equipped to upgrade itself for any kind of new components that you need to test, or any kind of new scenario that you want your components to be subjected to, or any kind of new complete platform shift. Also, as I said, if you have an existing test system and you just want to augment the IOs and the test features, those existing systems can be very easily connected to such an HL system, and it can be made to work as a single unit, right? So BlockPlug, along with ICAT, we ensure that you have a pretty smooth testing experience of your components without worrying about the test equipments, the scalability of it, or the configuration and other things required. So yeah, that's a short presentation I wanted to do on smart testing facilities and testing equipments that are available and can be built for your requirements. This is a wide topic. I can spend hours on it, but just wanted to concise it in the time allocations that has been given for this. So thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I don't know the format for asking questions, but feel free to ask. You can get in touch with Devesh, or you can get in touch with me. The number and email is provided below. And we will be very glad to cater to your questions and your requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the presentation. It will help us all greatly. Now we will start with the second presentation titled EV testing at bench level at ICAT. So please join me to welcome Mr. Devesh Parekh, Manager, EG Group, ICAT. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Asta. Thank you very much. Pradeep, that was a very interesting presentation from you. I'll just start in a moment. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on a very specific topic. All the speakers before me have already spoken at length about why we have organized this webinar and how it is very important to make sure that the components in new technology vehicles like EVs that are going in are validated thoroughly, are validated for all the conditions, are validated for all performance parameters before they can actually make way to the market. So good morning. My name is Devesh Parikh and I work as manager at International Center for Automotive Technology, Manesar. I have been working with ICAT for the past 12 years, and I have extensively worked in the field of HEV and EV validations, testing, and R&D. So I would just present a couple of slides for you for people who don't know about ICAT. ICAT is a center under NATRIP, which is the special purpose vehicle started by Government of India, Department of Heavy Industries. We provide services in the field of testing, validation, design, and homologation. We were established in 2006. Our human resource capital is approximately 600 people who are currently working with us, both the direct and indirect contractuals. We are located in Manesar in Haryana, which is very close to Delhi. We also have we have two centers here. Center 1, which is approximately 8 acres in size, and Center 2, which is 47 acres in size. Center 1 mostly concentrates on our component level testing and bench level testing fields, whereas Center 2 is more about vehicle level testing. Moving ahead, I hope my screen is changing and you're able to see it. I don't want to run through presentations without changing the slides. Yeah. Asta, are you able to see my screen changing? Hello? Okay, nevertheless. So this is the organization chart of ICAT. We are under NATRIP. Yeah, hello?
Devesh,
Asta?
your slide is not changing. Yeah.
It's not changing. Are we still on the third slide, first slide, or which one?
Ministry of Heavy Industries and Public Enterprises. That slide.
Yeah, okay. So the slide is changing then. That's fine. Now can you see the fourth slide? Slide number 3?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to see slide number 3? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. In case it doesn't change, please let me know. Thank you. Okay. So this is the organization structure of ICAT. We are under NATRIP, which is under Ministry of Heavy Industries and Public Enterprises. NATRIP is a special purpose vehicle which was started by Ministry of Heavy Industries with an investment of approximately 3,800 crore rupees back in 2006, under which ICAT Manesar was started as a brownfield project with an investment of approximately 1,350 crore rupees. So all the speakers before me have spoken at length about what are the developments, why it is important, and background of EVs, etc. I would just like to touch upon quickly on why we are trying to do this session, and why it is very imperative that we do the validation in the correct way. So we know that the world has seen a revolution in mobility, which is driven by electric vehicles. This has gained momentum, especially in the last 3-4 years, and India has has not been untouched by this. We have also become an integral part of this change in mobility that is coming forward. We all know that electric vehicles are very different in design and functionalities when we compare them to the conventional vehicles or the ICE vehicles as we call it. So owing to this difference in the design and functionalities, the validation requirements of EV is also okay. So so the validation requirements of EV is also very different, and their critical components can be validated only using dedicated facilities and specific capabilities. This validation, like Pradeep mentioned, that this validation becomes all the more important since the EV related technologies like batteries, motor generator units, the power electronics that are being used, they are also evolving very fast, so that the technology is not changing only on the vehicle level, but it is also evolving globally on the component level. New chemistries are coming up, new technologies in motor generators are coming up, new devices for power electronics, solid state devices are coming up. So there's a two pronged approach which has to be taken, wherein we need to make sure that the integration works well, and also the new component or the new technologies which are coming in work really well. So I'm very happy to tell you that ICAT has identified this need very early, like Dr. Joshi mentioned in the morning today, and we cover the complete gambit of these test requirements. So we have understood that this was a very important part, and we took a lead as part of being one of the largest test agencies in the country, and we have understood this, and we have upgraded our facilities and are still upgrading. I won't say that we are done here, because the technology is rapidly evolving, and we are working very closely with companies like Blowplug and other technology partners to bring to you the state of the art testing facilities that are required to do such kind of validations. So I would quickly move on to system level testing on bench. Pradeep already touched upon how the system level testing works, and what are the components of the system level testing. So I would not go deep into that. I would just touch upon the various parts. But what I would try to explain in detail would be that what we are actually doing at ICAT uh, to support on these testing requirements and how we achieve it. So we have already discussed why what is the need for model-based testing. So there is a rise in system complexity and test requirement. So when we see vehicles of today and compare them with vehicles of yesterday, vehicles of today have a lot of electronic components which are talking over CAN or FlexRays or LINs, and there are multiple ECUs which are taking decisions based on mutual signals, and there are sensors which are giving inputs to various ECUs. There are various algorithms. So there is a whole if I have to say, it's a whole network which is very similar to what happens in humans. I mean, it's almost like a neural network, which is making it very complex, because there is a lot of inter talking between different ECUs, talking with the sensors, actuating things, and all this is happening in a vehicle so the vehicle itself is very dynamic. When we talk about its functionality, the vehicle is moving vehicle can be charging, or can be just parked, or might be traveling at a very high speed, might be inching or idling. So there are multiple combinations, permutations and combinations which can be there when we talk about a typical EV or HEV of today, which is the one of the most complex types of automobile. And on top of that, to add to that, this technology has matured, has definitely matured, but it is still very new when we compare it to the old conventional ICE engine. So that challenge is always there, and we are trying to make it optimum with each passing year or each passing quarter. So this becomes a very important part to do model-based testing to ensure that these complexities eventually don't run into vehicle failures or component failures. Second very important point is, like Pradeep mentioned already, that product development cycle times are also coming down because the technology is changing so fast that every company in the world is looking to bring about their vehicle to the markets first. So that makes it very important to reduce the production development cycle time. And this pressure is not only on the OEMs but also on the test agencies or the development agencies like ICAT, who are supporting these OEMs, right? So the HIL benches or the hardware in loop benches, I would just keep it generic because there are very specific components of these benches which are used for these validations. But if I have to call them generically HIL bench, it replaces the traditional method of testing the control systems. So previously what used to happen was that the control system was being tested on the field. There was a vehicle which was built, and then it was, there was a calibration engineer in the vehicle who used to calibrate the ECU for different parameters in the field. That of course is still happening to ensure field durability and field performance, but a majority of that work can now be brought to the HIL bench. And this can be done by using computer models, which they will do is they will simulate the real-time physical plants which are running in the HIL systems. And what it would do is that the system would be in an environment which is very similar to the actual vehicle running. So all those uncertainties of actual vehicle running, all those sensor inputs and outputs, I'll show you in my next slide. They would be a part of this testing. However, this would be done on a bench level, right? It would also enable a systematic and comprehensive testing of control system functionality in a cost-effective manner. So if we reduce the time and if we reduce the effort, definitely the cost would be reduced, and it would be very easy for any test engineer to change the parameters in a lab on a HIL and do this testing vis-a-vis trying to do this on the field, right? And this becomes much more important with HEVs and EVs because those vehicles are still evolving and they require this kind of these kind of inputs and these kinds of performance optimization. So this is why HIL and SIL are important. A major part of this testing is modeling and simulation in different platforms like MATLAB, Simulink, LabVIEW, and any other similar platforms, wherein all the subsystems can be modeled in these environments. And what it would do is that it would ensure that on the bench the control system, when it is running, it is actually running the real vehicle model or real vehicle conditions. So if it's a two-wheeler or if it's a four-wheeler, or if the system has a switch reluctance motor or an induction motor, all these things can be modeled into these different modeling environments, hence giving close to real performances, and also making sure that the vehicle is being tested for the real condition and not for a standard input output system. So I hope you are understanding that why this modeling also plays a very important role, because this ultimately represents the vehicle or the subsystems that we are trying to run into. So this is one area which makes the base of HIL and SIL testing. This is just a brief layout of a HIL testing system, especially for an electric vehicle. So here the DUT that is being tested is the vehicle control unit with all the algorithms and all the logics built into it. So this is the master brain of the computer of the vehicle control unit, or it can also be called as ECU, but that's a term which is mostly used for IC engine vehicles. So this VCU is the terminology which is used for EVs and HEVs, and this vehicle control unit is the brain of the system. So I have just tried to very simply put it out in a way which everybody can understand. So here what we are trying to do is the green sides are the inputs and the blue is the processing and yellow is the output, right? So on the green side, what we try to do is that we try to, based on the models that we run in the HIL, we try to derive different kinds of inputs which would otherwise be coming to the vehicle control unit in the vehicle environment through sensors or through CAN or any other communication protocol, right? So these inputs can be analog, can be CAN based systems, can be switches which are digital, can be PWM, etc., etc. It can. I remember I heard Pradeep talking about FlexRay, so that is also coming up now. LAN. So all those things are working now. So Ethernet. So those things have become the name of the game now. So even those things can be simulated on the input side. Now these inputs are normally fed into the vehicle control unit. All the processing is done by the vehicle control unit, and then it gives the output. It gives the output to the output side of the HIL, which would eventually simulate the actuators, or the output can be in the form of a CAN signal. It can be a digital output. It can run some contactors. It can simply go to a display, or it can be an analog output. I mean, I have just tried to put in whatever possible outputs can be there. There can be more, I agree, but these are the major outputs that we normally have. Parallelly, another important system with respect to EVs is a battery management system. So when we talk about verifying the battery management systems, we need to have a cell emulator which can emulate the cells and which can make sure that the battery management sees on its input side sees number of cells which are actually not there. They are being emulated, but the battery management system would be fooled to think that there are cells connected to it using the cell emulator, which can give voltage, temperature, and current inputs and other inputs if required, some digital or analog inputs. And this battery management system again can give outputs in the form of CAN to the vehicle control unit, or can give outputs to the HIL output systems on different levels. For example, normally battery management systems they take care of the high side contactors. So if the cell voltage is okay, the temperature is okay, the battery management system might give a digital output which can turn the high side contactor on. And that's just an example. But since you don't have the actual contactor, the HIL system on the output side can simulate that contactor for you, can simulate that load for you, and hence ensure the functionality of the blue boxes. So I have taken vehicle control unit and battery management system here because these are the two most important control systems in a EV or a HEV. There can be multiple ECUs. There can be a BCM, which is body control module. There can be ABS ECUs. There can be other safety ECUs. So the list is endless. But since we are concentrating on EV HEV, I have tried to just show you the integral part of EVs, which are the most important parts, right? So this is about testing the control system on the HIL system. Similarly, if we have to do software and loop, we don't need the hardware. We can just run the plant models. We can have the inputs and the outputs just to make sure that the logic or the algorithms inside these control units is working fine. There you would not have the actual processors. It would just be a system which would be simulating those functions or those processings, right? So that is how HIL and SIL would work on the EV platforms. Now, second very important and very interesting, this slide is very interesting because this is one of the unique things that we have come across, and this is a requirement which was very unique because this is neither a HIL simulation nor a SIL simulation. Neither it is a complete hardware bench validation. Okay, it's a hybrid model. So here what we can do is that this is a component level validation. It's called power level testing or bench level testing, wherein some of the inputs. So what you see, some of the inputs can be simulated. So what you see in green are the actual hardware parts which would be tested. So these are the actual parts which would be installed on the bench or in the test lab, wherever we want to do it. The ones in yellow are the test systems or the systems which will be provided by the laboratory, and in blue we have battery with BMS or battery emulator. So we can have actual battery. I've kept it blue because it can be either. It can be a battery emulator or it can be actual battery with BMS. And then there is a cooling system in orange, because this system again it can be provided by the supplier or the customer, or can be simulated, or can be in the dyno lab by the test agency or by ICAT, right? So here the interesting thing is that when we try to validate these systems, we can have a we can have a hybrid approach, wherein we can go step by step in putting the green components in the test bench. Because if you see that if there is a vehicle platform being developed, then I hope that you all would agree that all the things in green and even the thing in blue would have to be developed as standalone systems, because this is a new platform. These are not proven things. Onboard charger, there can be a supplier who's making onboard charger for you for your specifications. A power distribution unit, this might be a supplier who's doing specifically for your specifications. There is a DC-DC converter which is very specific to the vehicle in which it is being installed. Motor generator unit can be an induction motor, or can be a switch reluctance motor, or can be a PMSM or a BLDC. Then you can have a motor control which is developed specifically as part of the development cycle. The VCU has algorithms which are very specific to the OEM. So all these parts in green can have to be validated, but if they are to be validated together, then initially then it's a problem, because we would not be able to know where does the problem lie, since all of them talk to each other, all of them contribute to the whole system. So this is why integrated testing approach is very important. So here we have the flexibility, or what I was calling the hybrid model, is that you can have 1, 2, 3 or 4 as your test plan. You can have these things, these components as real components, or you can simulate them using HIL systems, right? So here I have just shown one set of signals, because this is the most advanced way of doing the validation testing. So here I have just said that the vehicle signals would be simulated, rest all is actual. This is like 100%. This is like the top level of validation, wherein all the parts are validated, and none of them there is no doubt about their performance, and we are just trying to see how they are working together. But if we want to remove a DC-DC converter, we can definitely simulate it using a HIL. If we want to remove the PDU or the onboard controller, we can definitely onboard charger. We can simulate it using a HIL system or the loads. Similarly, if we want to simulate the battery, like I told you in my last slide, we can use a battery emulator or a cell emulator, right? So here we can do pick and choose. So we can go step by step, starting with only motor generator and motor controller unit as real, and rest all is simulated. And then we can keep on adding each component in reality and see what is its effect on the overall integrated performance. Once we have done this, what we can do is that we can be sure that if there is a problem, where is the problem, and if there is no problem, whether this whole integrated system on the bench is working fine, using different test cases. So these vehicle signals which will be simulated, and different conditions which would be simulated on the bench, would make sure that when the real vehicle goes on the road, there are no performance or safety issues, right? So this is a very unique thing about it. And this is just a representative image. We can have many more components, we can have many more controllers on this bench, which can I have not shown the CAN systems or the communication system here. I have just assumed that they're all working over CAN. So there can be many more layers of complexity, or many more layers of variability that can be added to this whole power level testing. And all this can be done in a room, on a bench, using standard systems, using standard temperature and humidity conditions. And we can also make sure we can also do some kind of environmental simulation, like for motor generator unit we can have a high temperature test, or a performance test during high temperature or high humidity conditions. with storage. So we can put a small chamber in the lab, and we can put the VCU in it. So we can put that chamber to -40. So now everything else is same, but the VCU is operating at -40. So whether it is doing its job or not, we can check. So on bench you get all this flexibility. If you try to do this on vehicle, it becomes all the more difficult because you cannot pinpoint the issues, and also you cannot make sure where the problem lies, right? So this whole integrated bench level approach has made it a lot easier to validate EVs because they have so many unvalidated and complicated components and communication channels, right? Moving ahead, so I have already talked about it. So for power level testing, we would use dynamometer bench. I would just in my next slide show you what all we have. We have charging emulator, which is charge discovery system from Keysight. We have battery emulators. We also use high voltage and low voltage power supplies and loads to simulate the DC-DC converters or the onboard chargers. We also can simulate the charger itself, whether it is a AC or a DC charger, and we can simulate the battery using battery emulator. So we can simulate everything here on the bench to test whatever components we need to test in whatever order. So here typically this is an exercise which is a very collaborative exercise in which both OEM and the test agencies, they sit together, they agree on different test cases, and those test cases are of course run on the HIL system, which has got a PXI controller, which Pradeep was just showing. So I have already talked about all these things. So of course software is also a very important part of it, and that I think Pradeep has already covered. So I'll not go into detail. All these things have been already covered. I would just like to touch upon one more important point, which is fault injection. So of course we are expecting everything to work as we have designed it to, but in real life we cannot always ensure that the vehicle or the sensors or the control systems, they would all work fine. There can be failures, there can be faults which can come into the system. So we also, using these HIL systems, we can do fault injection. So we can introduce fault, I mean deliberately, and see how does the system react to it. So there can be different types of faults. There can be a fault wherein a sensor is not working. There can be a fault where the motor has gone into some kind of a mode where it cannot go above a certain RPM. There can be a fault where the SOC has fallen to dangerous levels, right? BMS has not responded. In that case, how would the system react? What would be the security or the safety parameters that would be deployed? Like the vehicle might be thrown into limpo mode. I hope all of you know that, for example, for ICE vehicles, ICE vehicles, if the TPS does not work fine, it has got two sensors, but if both the sensors don't work fine, the vehicle goes into limpo mode. So that means the vehicle cannot go above a certain speed of 5 or 10 kilometers per hour, thereby ensuring that the safety is not compromised. So we can do that as well on these benches to make sure that the vehicle is foolproof, right? Of course, measurement and calibration can be done using various tools like INCA and CAN, because this can also be used to do fine tuning or calibration of the algorithms that are there on the controller side. So these are some of the facilities that we use along with the HIL and the other bench level testing system. So this is a motor dynamometer, both battery emulators, data logging devices. We need all of them for testing. This is just a representative pic of us testing a hub motor for performance and back EMF. So we have dynamometers ranging from right from 160 kilowatt, right from 25 kilowatts, and even below that, right up to 160 kilowatts for motor application. We also have dynos which can go up to 820 kilowatts, but they are normally low RPM and high torque application. So motors normally fall in the first category. Then we have battery emulators wherein we can go up to 300 kilowatts, 1000 volt, 1000 amperes. This is very important to simulate the real battery pack during bench level testing conditions. Then we have different performance testing, which we can do: vibration, combined vibrations. This is in addition to the bench testing that we do. Then we have multiple application specific testing, safety testing of cells. Somebody was talking about how battery safety testing is very important. So we have dedicated systems wherein we can test as per various international and national standard. This is in addition to the bench testing. This is not a part of the bench testing. I'm just trying to tell you life cycle testing again of the batteries is something which we can perform at ICAT. We have increased our capacity to almost 60 channels now, and we can go from as low as 600 watts, which is good for a small cell, right up to 720 kilowatts, and voltage range of 1.5 volt to 100 volts, and temperature current we can go up to 1200 amperes. Life cycle testing. So this is one of the case studies. This is also something like a bench level testing, but it is for a cell. So we did Coulomb counting method on this particular cell for a design of a BMS. So this was again a system, basically a charge discharge system was created on a bench level to do this testing. So this is just a partial testing bench that we created for development of the battery management system. These are new facilities that we have installed recently. We have multiple battery explosion proof chambers, charging systems, high G mechanical shock testers. I remember Pradeep talking about HALTAS. So we are very happy to tell you that we have installed our HALTAS facilities and mixed gas corrosion, which is again a very important environmental test for electrical and electronic components, which are in plenty in EVs and HEVs. This is just a list of what all we have under the Center of Excellence for EV testing. Like Dr. Joshi was saying, that we are also very actively involved in national initiatives to facilitate e-mobility. So we are the convenership of TD27 sectional committee of BIS, which is responsible for framing standards related to EVs and HEVs, is under the convenership of ICAT. Director ICAT is the chairperson for that particular committee, and we also have four subsectional committees with us at ICAT, out of which 2 are being headed by Dr. Joshi, under which we have formed standards for motor and battery testing and for TD27. We are also part of ETD 51, which is the subsectional committee for forming standards for charging infrastructure. We are also very actively participating and contributing in the FAME scheme, in the evolution of FAME scheme, both FAME 1 and FAME 2. Thank you very much. That's all from my side. Over to you, Asta. And I would be happy to answer your questions. So these are my contact details. You can contact me, or you can put your questions in the chat box. If time permits, we will take up 3 or 4 questions after this session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable time and presentation. It will help us all greatly. Now, I would request Mr. Jaspal Sachcha, General Manager, Corporate Affairs at Honda Cars India Limited, and Dr. Madhusudan Joshi to summarize the session. We welcome you, sir.
Is my voice clear? Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. So, is Dr. Joshi also joining, or I can put the summary what I have learned from today and my viewpoints? Can I begin?
Yes, sir. You can begin.
Okay, thank you. So while I was taking notes of what Devesh-san was mentioning, first of all, Devesh-san, it was a wonderful presentation, and I must appreciate you are communicating to industry that while there is a government initiative for Make in India, which has subsets of, say, design in India till the last of ELV disposal, say battery disposal, the part what you said today is test in India, and you said as a subset of Make in India, we are ready for new technologies with test in India. So thank you so much. It was a good communication to industry for your support for this journey. So I will take something like 3-4 minutes to put forth my views on this discussion, talking about hybrid and electric vehicles. So to start with, if I say how do we look at future of say battery electric vehicles in India? So while we had from government side directions coming, what will be the penetration of electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles in time to come? The reality today is it's about less than 0.1%. But the good part is the agencies like Bloomberg, who were earlier representing and talking about India as penetration of BEVs can be 3 to 5% range between 25 to 30 or max 6% by 2030. Last fortnight there was a summit from Bloomberg, who now are predicting for India the range can be as high as 40% by 2040. So this is a very positive sign while how world is looking at India's progress. So if I say there are three major stakeholders for this journey. First, government, then corporates, wherein say Honda cars or various other OEMs, and then there is the third, which is very important stakeholder, is customer. From government side, they are indicating how the journey should be. If I say corporates, now various countries, corporates, they have started saying that UK, for example, saying by 2030, only thereafter zero emission vehicles. Honda recently, in this financial year only, have mentioned that by 2040, the sale will be zero emission vehicles, which means electric and fuel cell hydrogen vehicles. So this is a big change which is coming for BEVs. And we have been saying that for journey of electric vehicles, India need to develop an ecosystem with suppliers, collaboration of all OEMs, so that we can produce those parts at a affordable price. So good part here is, while we may be a little behind in terms of our current volumes, but our supplier fraternity, they have started exports of EV, HEV related parts to rest of the world. So their percentage, if you happen to see Sona, for example, Sona Steering, they're saying they are exporting almost 15% of their total production is electric vehicle parts to rest of the world. So this will also augment localization of these electric, hybrid, PHEV parts in India, and bringing all technologies in India will further help. Now, coming to the second set of stakeholder, which I mentioned after government and corporates, this is customer. My perspective is here that we have a distinct advantage of having our figural engineering, which always give us just 1 second. Can you please switch on this? मेरी वाली आपने ऑन नहीं है बैटरी, चेंज करो उसको. Sorry, I was going on a battery saver mode here. Thank you. Probably this is working now. So here, what I want to say, now government has done its part. The battery electric vehicles has already getting a GST of say 5%. Government in total in some of the states are offering incentives to the tune of 40% level, but still the desired penetration is somewhere missing. To me, this is the customer aspect of business. How we can create now awareness programs. So I would also request maybe ICAT as a leading a player in this can support by organizing events wherein more and more people can get a taste of these technologies by getting to know the technology, as well as maybe they can test drives and get a feel of these latest technologies. We all organizations, including Honda, there is no doubt that we will have to transform to these technologies. So somewhere there will be intermediate steps, maybe hybrid, while we are going towards EV. But yes, EVs are also not that far off what we were discussing a few years before. Going further deep into the discussion, which I saw today, it was a very interesting discussion. If I say whether it is hybrid or battery electric vehicles, battery is not the only differentiator. So it is the synergy of the system. And thanks to Deveshnan for a very clear, good explanation that as an industry, we can go step by step and taking use of the facility available at ICAT for developing a holistic approach. I would also like to offer and mention here that Honda is a R&D oriented, philosophy oriented organization. So we are ready to support ICAT or other test agencies for developing these world-class facilities. So please do not hesitate and communicate to us whether in India you need some support or by organizing some visits to our headquarter facilities or regional headquarter facilities. We are happy to support. Lastly, on the third stakeholder, which is customer. So the generally asked questions are, what are the inhibitors? What are the difficulties today? What are being faced for the expansion of electric vehicles or new technology vehicles? I would like to say here the inhibitors are me and you. Why I say so? Of course, the fact is the latest technologies will come at some little higher price. So we need to develop this kind of understanding. While of course we are today buying SUVs which are at higher cost, but while we are talking of these latest technologies, be it hybrid, be it electric, be it tomorrow flex fuel, or going forward hydrogen. So these technologies are there for environment, for green earth. We should also be ready to shell out that little extra for environment. That also is one aspect. So while there will be early adapters among us who are who knows the technology as engineers, as technocrats, we need to lead to become owners of these cars. The fact here is these cars, these technologies initially have a higher cost, but overall cost of ownership is probably comparing the current ICE will be at within few years or during the ownership period, these will be cheaper. So we should feel pride while we take ownership of these new technology vehicles contributing towards environment. So this is my understanding. The message is we all technocrats participating here also should consider, because best should not be the enemy of good. This is one statement I read somewhere. As we go along, the technology will develop. So whatever is available today, we should support. With this kind of words, I conclude, and thanks once again, ICAT, for coming forward and saying, we are ready, are you? So this is the message I am taking from ICAT's presentation. And thank you once again, Dr. Joshi, Devesh Sir, for inviting me for this event. Thank you once again. And my apologies for joining late. Could not attend the session initially due to some sudden internal meeting. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Asta San. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Asta, just a moment. Thank you, Yashpal San, and it was great to have you and your kind words. We would definitely take all these inputs and try to communicate more to the industry and work together with the industry to understand and improve our services to them. Thank you very much for joining. Asta, please take up further. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable time. Now we have a question from Mr. Deepak Sharma. Do we think we need any fine tuning in AIS standard based on European or US standard? Example, ambient conditions for the test, drop test height, water immersions to more deeper levels, etc.
Okay, I would answer that. This is Devesh from ICAT. Thank you for your question. This is already being done. I am not sure how aware how aware the person is who's asking the question. Sorry, what was his name? I am sorry, I did not get the name.
So Mr. Deepak.
Okay, Mr. Deepak. So we are already doing it in all our AISC panels. This part is being taken care of considering Indian conditions. So we don't adopt European regulations as it is. If a need be, there is a discussion on it, and there is a discussion, and then there is an agreement on if there is some environmental conditions which have to be changed. So we are already doing it, but your question is very valid, and we as we discussed in the morning also that India specific validation, like Vijay was saying, is very critical. So we are already taking care of this in all the adaptation or conversion of EC standards to AIS standards. Thank you.
Okay. So I once again thanks all the speakers of the session for gracing the today's webinar with your presence and wonderful presentation. Thank you all delegates and attendees for your attention. I hope you found today's presentation informative and useful. Stay healthy and stay safe.